couple of weeks ago, I found this Porsche Macan S 3-litre petrol 2019 on BCA for a buy it now. It had a really good spec, low mileage, full Porsche service history. Everything about it was really good, apart from the fact that it had an engine problem. Now on the notes it said engine bay noise rattling. It was $7,000 under cap clean, and I thought, you know what, I've got a feeling this could be something or nothing. So I hit buy it now, and I've took the risk and I won the car. And it's actually a really nice car. It looks great. It's got a really good spec, as I just mentioned. Everything about it is great, apart from when I try and turn it on. It's hard to say whether that sounds all right, because obviously you've got injector noises. There you go, about 2,500 RPM it goes. Listen carefully. Gone. Right, go on then. All right, easy. A lot less. Again, that's it. So that was the rattling they were talking about, and although it's not really bad, the engine still runs and it's not immediately obvious. Now, it did sound like it was coming from the passenger side over on the right hand corner. So just a couple of minutes ago I got my stethoscope out and got it in my ears, and I was putting the rod on the engine to see where I could hear the tapping noise coming from, and again on idle everywhere sounded fine, but when I got someone to rev the car I checked again, and the only place where the noise got worse and it echoed was on this passenger side rear timing chain cover. It was just when you revved it, there was just that bang, 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 bang. So I think it is coming from here, and I think the tension is either just slack or it's hitting the timing chain cover. Now it's fairly accessible, I think, at the back here, so I am going to try and take the timing chain cover off just to see if we can see any scoring marks on the inside of it or anything obvious before we go hell for leather and take the engine out. So I'm just going to start stripping bits down here and yeah, see if we can get that timing chain cover off. So I got lucky, and the right hand bank is actually quite accessible. I just needed to remove the heat shield on the turbo and basically a fuel line out the way and undo the bolts. There we go. Right, that looks all right. And in my experience, the chain shouldn't really be this slacklet. It's, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not massive, but it's enough where I would say there's not normally any movement in those, and there's just a bit too much. And guys, right now live on Compete for Cars is this money can't buy Golf GTI DSG 5-door Mark V with only 8,500 miles on the clock. It's absolutely immaculate. It looks brand new. It's been garaged all its life. It is a great car. I'm going to leave the link in the description. It's £2.99 a ticket. Go grab your tickets, and I'll see you for the live draw in a couple of weeks. So the car's now in the workshop. It's on the ramp, and I'm now going to be taking the engine out of a Porsche for the first time. Never taken an engine out of a Porsche before. But because it's obviously Audi derived engine and gearbox, I'm hoping that it's going to be as simple as the RS7 was, where we can just take the whole front end off, disconnect the engine from the gearbox in situ, and then just pull the engine forward. I'm hoping it's as easy, because the RS7 was actually quite easy. So if you haven't seen the RS7 video, I'm going to put the link in the top right hand corner and go check that out. But yeah, I'm hoping this is going to be just as simple. It looks possibly like it is. We've got a massive exhaust here, single turbo, whereas obviously the RS7 was twin turbos, but the size of this exhaust is massive, and I'm just hoping I can get down the back there to get the gearbox bolts off. Yeah, so I'm now going to put it probably to a time lapse and a bit of talking over that, because I'm doing all this for the first time, so doing it live I'll just be talking crap. Now, although I've never removed the front end of a Porsche before, Every car's the same. It's got a bumper, it's got headlights, it's got a rad pack. They all need to be removed. They're just packaged slightly different in different cars. The Macan's no different. So I was just making sure that all the bolts were removed and there's not any that are just left hanging on and end up ripping out and damaging. So just spending that extra time getting everything right, pulling it off because I don't have any diagrams or anything like that. But it all went quite smoothly. Removed the front bumper, fairly simple. Removed the headlights. There is a trim under each headlight, which I needed to remove. Managed to do that without breaking anything. But then I always have a gripe about cooling systems. I mean, that's a crap design. The lowest point of the cooling system is this hose here. And as you can see, look, it's above all the slam panel and it's just dripping everywhere like this. Surely, why can't they just create a drain bung for the coolant system? Is it really that difficult? Because coolant is such a messy substance. So I've got some pipes here which I presume at this point are gearbox oil cooler pipes. Obviously I need to disconnect them to remove the front end. Now I don't want to have to mess around and drain all the gearbox fluid and refill it because it's a pain in the arse. So I am going to try disconnect the pipes and put a couple of bungs in each side as quick as I can and hopefully not lose any fluid. And then I can obviously just connect them when I obviously connect it back up. So I don't know how this is going to go at all, but I am hoping for the best. I mean, I'm just assuming there's going to be oil coming out of here. There might not be. It is a low point in the system though, so in fact it's the lowest point in the system, so there should be oil in this pipe. How much though, I don't know. Oh, there we go. There's one. And there's two. Push them in tight. There we go, happy with that? Beautiful. I think there's about 9 drips lost in total, which I will accept. And play the game of how many bolts have I not undone that I should have. Don't actually know. Doesn't appear to be stuck on anything. What? Why? I mean, why did it just suddenly fall off the stool? For what reason? So unnecessary. Luckily, everything was disconnected, but still. And just like that, the front end is now removed. I've just removed that bar that goes across there. And now we've got quite a lot of access actually to the engine itself. Now, the RS7 I did is very similar engine. It looks very similar, although it's just a little bit more diddy here. Look, it's not as long, obviously, because it's got a cylinder on each bank missing. 3 cylinders on each side versus obviously the 4 on the RS7. So it's just a little bit more room. Now, there isn't more room when it comes to this massive cat. It's the biggest one I've ever seen in my life. No doubt it's a GPF and a catalytic converter all built into one, but it is huge. So I'm hoping I can just undo it from here with this massive clamp and then just wiggle it out the way so I can just get to the gearbox bolts at the back here. Because if I have said already, I'm going to employ the same tactics I did with the RS7, so I don't have to remove the gearbox, drive shafts, anything like that. I'm just going to unbolt it from the gearbox, put the engine crane on, just lift it and pull it out. So we've got to obviously disconnect our wiring, some down here, obviously ECU I'm going to have to remove, and there should only be like a fuel line and a few more connectors, nothing major, and then we can obviously just pull it straight out. Now these clamps, obviously, I've undone it, but it's still absolutely solid on there, so you have to bang them off with a hammer, but the trick is not to damage it, so I have to buy a new one. That is what I'm going to try and avoid. There's one. There's two. This one should be easy. There we go. Just wrap this around here. Right, so that's the... It's as loose as probably I'm going to get it, I'll be honest. There are bolts there, I can see them. No doubt they're going to be rusty as hell and end up in an absolute nightmare. So I'm going to try and remove the gearbox bolts like this, but worst case I can see them. I will have to just somehow cut them off. And on the underside of the car, we need to remove the brace that goes under the gearbox, the 6 bolts holding the drive plate to the gearbox, which is the torque converter, and then we need to remove the steering column as well. And also on this, the engine mounts aren't rested on the bottom of the subframe like you'd think. They are actually bolted to the side of the subframe. So I can't just undo the bolts and then lift it off. I had to hover the engine with the crane first to undo and remove the engine mounts. So that's the engine finally out. In the end, it was this aircon pipe here that was caught. But yeah, I've got it out now, and I've just taken off this timing chain cover again. And I'm just going to go around here because it's quite evident that the chain is a problem. So obviously this is fully tensioned. Look how slack it is. Look at that. Look how slack that is. Around here as well. Now I'm going to just take this timing chain cover off as well, just to check the differences, just to make sure this one is a lot tighter, because there was no issue with this one, it was with that one. But here's an engine I made earlier, which is a Golf R engine, and this chain is fine, and you can see, look, there is absolutely, if I do that, it's just, it's solid. There's no, I know it's a slightly different system, but there's no play in it whatsoever. What are we stuck on? Why are we constantly getting stuck on stuff? Thank you. So just to show you the difference, look, obviously I'm going to do it the same amount of force, so putting quite a bit of force into that, and you can see it's moving a little bit, but nothing major. Go in here as well. I mean, I don't even need to do it to this side. You can see it's not even taut. Look, it just bows. I'm putting the same amount of pressure in. In fact, no, I'm putting less in. But yeah, look at that. And that is the noise. So that's just the tensioner. Tension's obviously gone. Look. Just put it down a little bit. So there's the tensioner, and that should be obviously pressed out quite far, which is obviously then, I mean, if you see, look, if I put some pressure on this, move the camera up, see that tension, ready? Can't get my thing around it. But anyway, I can't get my thing around it, but it goes a bit tighter. So in my opinion, this tension has failed. I don't think the chain's going to have stretched at 26,000 miles, but yeah, it's just too. So I reckon all new chains and tensioners. Well, we're going to change all the timing chains anyway, which means we need to take off this big timing chain cover, and to do that we've got to remove it from here, which means I haven't drained the oil. So I'm going to drain the engine oil now, because as soon as I undo that, I'm going to get oil coming out, because obviously it's near the bottom of the engine. And I don't want to waste this oil, because it's the good stuff that I've just put in half a mile ago. That's the drive plate. A couple of coolant pipes. Oh, that was easy. That's enough out of the way, or is it? It might be worth just removing it, just so it doesn't impede me when I'm trying to get it back on. I'm just going to speed this up here. I'm just removing the coolant pipes and the fuel line that are in the way of the rear main timing chain cover.
There we go. Right, we've popped it that side. Just got to do it this side now. There we go. There we go. It's also just very good sealant. Right, so here, right, there are only 2 chains on this, so this is slightly different to the engines I'm used to. Let me just bring it down. So here's an overview of the timing. On this engine it's slightly different because there's just 2 gears instead of a chain here. So in previous cars there has been a chain connecting the crank to a idler pulley here, and then there's been a chain connecting the idler pulley to bank 1, and then another chain to bank 2. So there's normally 3 chains, but now they've done away with that. So your crank is geared directly to the idler pulley, and then there's just 2 chains coming off of that. So looking at it, obviously we can see this side was fine. This is where the noise was coming from. And if you look at the tension on the chain here, it's fine. It's a little bit slack, but again there's no oil pressure, but it's still tight. But then look at this one, look. It's just really loose. So I can't see anything obvious as to why it would be loose. So almost, you've got a guide here, you've got a guide here, and you've got a little guide at the top here. So I'm going to now just take off that tensioner, and just to see, because I suspect it's the tensioner that's at fault. So I can't see any other reason why it would be slack. There's definitely oil getting to it. So here's the tensioner. And yeah, so that pulls that tight. So we've got the tensioner here, look, which obviously works off oil pressure. Now, I don't know how strong that should be, because again, it's oil pressure fed, but I'm pretty sure it should still be stronger than that. I shouldn't really be able to push that down from memory. That should be fairly tight. I can't see any other reason for the chain to be loose other than this tensioner. I think we're just going to replace both chains, both tensioners, and all guide rails, I think, as a fail-safe, because the VVTs or the variators, they're solid, they're not going to be playing them at all. So I don't think it's anything to do with those.
So, with no obvious signs of anything broken, I am just going to suspect the timing chain tensioner at this point. As I said, it seems slightly weak. Until I get a new one, I can't really directly compare. Where's it going? Where's it going? Where's it going over there? I'm here. Until I get a new one, I can't directly compare it. But because this is a Porsche, I've rung Porsche to get a quote on parts, and I've also phoned Audi and found an A6 3-litre petrol which has the exact same engine code as this. So interestingly, I'm going to show you the results, because I've rung both and I've got a quote for both sets of parts, and you would think that Audi would be cheaper. But I've written out everything here. So we've got Audi, Porsche, and then we've got 2 chains, 2 tensioners, and then a load of guides that we need. And as you can see, the first 2 at the top there, look, the Audi chains are nearly £50 each more expensive than what Porsche quoted me. Everything else is fairly similar. The tensioners are similar price, and the guides are similar price. The only thing that's really different is one of the guides is 15 quid more at Porsche. But overall, the difference is quite big actually. It's over £60 plus VAT cheaper to buy the parts at Porsche, which is weird. Now, also you'd expect the part numbers to be exactly the same, but they're not. The Porsche ones do have a slightly different part number. So I'm not 100% sure if it should be, because the engine codes are identical for both of these chassis that I searched these parts on. But the slightly different part number and the fact that it's so much cheaper at Porsche got me questioning. So I have actually ordered both sets from Audi and Porsche. So when I get those, one's on back order, so it's not going to be here for 3 or 4 days. So you will see that in the next video. But when they get here, we are going to inspect and see the actual differences between the parts to see if they are the same or indeed slightly different. So that is where I am going to leave it for today's video, guys. Until the parts come in, I can't really do no more. As I said, it's going to be about 3 or 4 days. So I'm going to obviously leave the Porsche on the ramp. I'm not going to mess around trying to get all this out. And there is, I think, one video I can film while I'm waiting for parts. So I'm going to do that. So as always, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video. What do you think is going to be the problem in the end? Do you think there's more afoot than just a tensioner? Or do you think there was just a random weak tensioner with no real explanation as to why? So as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Oh, and don't forget, go grab your tickets for the Golf GTI.